So I don't really fight people back on it because I think people have a right to feel how they want to feel. But yeah, like you said, the execution of how this is happening is terrible.
So, because how do you resolve it? Because it's like and I want to get into Calvin Michaels as president. So
Oh Lord,
if
I am
we
not
were,
running. They're gonna take me out on one.
but just for this platform, we're going to hypothetically, if Calvin Michaels was president, where do we go from here overall? Not just within what we just discussed just now, but just overall, how do we come to resolve? And is leaving the country at this point the answer? Because a lot of people are doing that. They're moving to Ghana. They're moving, different places. Because I wish I could do that. So, what would be some of the okay? Let me just ask you this as president, Mr. Michaels. How would what are some of the key things in this climate that you, in your own perspective, that we need to be focused on? Give us some of those bullet points of what we need to focus on in this climate, and what are some of your suggestions on how we need to remedy those things.
Yeah. Okay. One of the first things I would really go after is one, education. I think Americans
Yeah.
have just gotten dumbed down so bad.
Oh
And
yes,
it's been
yes,
intentional and it's been an ongoing process for 40 years. And now we're at the space where you can have a bunch of idiots in charge and just tell us anything, and half the country runs with it because we don't have discernment anymore. There's not an element of just critical thinking. And so, again, when you're in a country that only allocates 6% of the budget to education, but two-thirds of the budget to war, this is the end result. So education, my thing and my goal would be to one, have like a 25-year plan to
mm,
recalibrate how Americans see education and how Americans are educated. That also includes college needs to be free and we can afford it. Because again, if you can send 40 billion to Argentina, you could have just paid for everybody's tuition for the next handful of years and then some, and also
yeah,
canceled student loans and still had some left over. And in the same way that they just voted for the big beautiful bill, which is going to add $5.2 trillion to our national debt over the next 10 years, that was more than enough for everybody to have free healthcare, free education, and also technically you could even put money into people's retirement and we'd still have stuff left over. That would help the country
facts.
a lot more than what's about
Hmm.
to happen here. So education would be one, right? And in addition, I would also utilize what happens in our media to educate. I think one of the reasons, me personally, that I think I was locked in with a lot of stuff when I lived in Italy, because we only had one channel on the TV. It was a military American Forces Network channel. There was no advertising shown. Instead, they showed educational commercials. Every commercial was something that taught you something. So you're watching whatever show, but every single time they went to break, it was some kind of commercial that was educational. I would put that into the children's programming as far as the network. So like a Nickelodeon, a Cartoon Network, a Disney, I would have had a stipulation where 20% of the advertising on those networks needs to be educational, and then the federal government would just pay the difference of what they would have made from advertisers privately.
Mhm.
That way,
Interesting. Okay.
children are
Mhm.
getting an insight
Interesting
on all
concept.
yeah,
Interesting
so
concept.
that we make sure something like a PBS is funded because again, not
Hmm.
every kid has cable, and we underestimate how many people live in rural America where there is no broadband and they still got the rabbit ears. If well, not anymore, we're all digital now, but where literally the only channels you're gonna get are the local channels plus PBS, and so that's one thing. So education, of course, healthcare. Um, Finding and creating a way to make healthcare more affordable. The problem is we've privatized so much of it where the insurance companies can do whatever they want. The thing that I'll say about the Affordable Care Act, had we gotten what they initially were really trying to present, we'd be living large right now. But the problem was, and this is another critique I would have had of Barack, was that because he knew that there's that animosity of him just being in office because of this right here, he was always trying to paint himself as I'm everybody's president. I want to reach across the aisle. So even though he had a supermajority and had the votes to pass the Affordable Care Act, he still created a bipartisan committee to look at the bill so that
Mm.
when it passed, everybody could say, well, Republicans saw it, Democrats saw it, it's going to be fair, it's going to be good. And so by doing that, the Republicans on that committee kept saying, amend this, amend that. No, we don't like this part, take this out. By the time it got to the floor for a vote, Republicans had put 200 different amendments on what would have been the Affordable Care Act. And
Got
then
it.
when it was time to vote,
Hmm.
and again, remember, Democrats caved on us like, okay, well, fine, we'll take this out, we'll take that out. Okay, fine, fine, fine. Then when it came time to vote, not a single Republican voted on it, and the Democrats pushed it through. And so it was like, you got conned here, where you had this beautiful healthcare plan that would be so much better than what we have right now. And then again, the idea of, well, let's play and reach across the aisle and be friends with everybody. They weren't trying to be your friends. They're trying to
No.
sabotage what you had.
Mm-mm.
They were successful at doing it. So there will be that. I would currently put in guardrails to make sure that what's happening right now will never happen again. There is no reason why we've been able to dismantle the federal government this easily. You got Elon Musk who went in there, fired them 300,000 plus federal workers, and you've watched them go and gut agency after agency after agency after agency. Somebody was asking me, why do we need a Department of Education? I don't understand what it is, because you know that how the system worked. They were screwing our kids over anyway. And I'm like, okay, two things can be true at once, but understand if you're a Black parent that has a child with special needs, the
Yes.
Department of Education is going to ensure that your child is going to have access to an equitable education. The Department of Education is going to ensure that even when it comes to the food programs, that your child has, equitable opportunities for food, like all those kind of things. People mix it up and kept thinking Department of Education makes the curriculum. They don't. The
They
states
don't.
that. So, there's that piece. Foreign policy. We currently have, well, I don't know the numbers right now, but before January of 2025, we had 870 military bases around the world in all these different countries. And so my goal would be with foreign policy, we're going to have to get to a spot where we're not constantly in some mess every week. And so I would personally start trying to not make amends, but build better camaraderie with a lot of the countries that we don't get along with. And also take note of the fact that we don't need to contribute to anybody else's oppression. This whole attempt that they're doing in Nigeria. Well, yes, Nigeria and Venezuela, all of that is some nonsense. They're about to put us in some stuff we don't need to be a part of.
Right.
That emphasis on infrastructure. Our infrastructure is dated. Our bridges are still old.
Right. Yeah.
So bridges, we keep seeing one collapse every few years, right?
Yes.
Emphasis on that. So infrastructure needs to be rebuilt. The idea would be to even enhance the workforce. I would even put stipulations on what's happening with AI, where it's here, we can't make it go away, but we need to create a space where its existence is not going to be to the detriment of
oversaturated, right? Yes.
Just careers. And then I would make a stronger EPA, because right now, because Orange Man and crew have gutted the EPA, there's no federal regulation when it comes to air emissions right now. And that's why you're seeing the influx of all these data centers get built really quickly, because right now they've just gutted some of the Biden era regulations on that. And so now if you take a look at like what's happening in Memphis, where the air quality in some areas is so bad where you're not even recommended to live there anymore because the air is that bad. A lot of people, unfortunately, it's going to kind of be like what we saw with G&E or PG&E in California when all those people got sick years later and had all kind of cancers. That's coming. If it's not cancer, it's going to be emphysema. It's going to be sarcoidosis. It's going to be something. But so, I mean, those would be some of the things I'd really be locked in on. Making sure senior citizens are taken care of. A lot of senior citizens can't retire. Just people who are, pushing 80 still working at Starbucks because the way that system worked, and a lot of it will be protections for people who always get scammed and lose everything. That would be a thing I would look into. I think I talked about college tuition, but that's ridiculous with how high it is. In addition to fixing, you can forgive everybody's student loans, but you still have to fix the system so that the next cohort of people don't fall into the same boat.
You don't have to deal with that, right?
So those kind of things, and again, like I said, so really. We spend so much time undoing what has just been done in the last 10 months, but also repairing and rebuilding our relationships globally with other countries and being in a space where it's okay to partner and collaborate economically if both of us can eat. I know we paint all the other countries to be the enemy and China this and China that. Listen, China needs us in the same way we need them. So you know what?
Oh, yes,
how can we collaborate? How can we, let's iron this out in a way that's feasible for both of us, and not even just China, all these countries. Like we vilify and villainize all these other countries, and we do exactly what they do. So those would be some of the things.
Even more so. Okay. Oh, well, look at that. Calvin Michaels for president. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, that's my vote. Until I get the actual sound. But I really appreciate your take on that.